Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Unbreakable Woman's Journey, where we talk about leadership, resilience, and real stories behind building something meaningful when you didn't start with a manual. If you listened to the last episode, we talked about question that guided me through some very uncertain moments in leadership. The question was simple. What is the next responsible step? That question helped me move forward without pretending I had it all together and I had all the answers. But today I want to talk about something that actually came before that step. Because when you step into leadership, especially when the internet, you inherit a system that is already struggling, there's a very strong temptation temptation to fix everything immediately. Your brain walks into the room and starts scanning. That workflow doesn't make sense. That system looks inefficient. That policy seems outdated. That department seems overwhelmed. And before you know it, your mind is building a list of all the things that need to change. But when I first stepped into the clinic, leaderships is something inside told me to slow down. Not because I had leadership training, and of course, not because someone advised me to, but because I knew instinctively something very important. If I started changing things before I understood them, I could easily make the situation worse. So instead of walking in and announcing a new plan, I did something that might have looked strange at first. I watched, I listened, I paid attention, and what I discovered very quickly was that the clinic didn't just have problems. It's plural. It had gaps in the system itself. There were no office policy. Well, actually, there was an office policy manual, but there were no real procedures. There were no clear process for balancing the checkbook. Weren't any clear boundaries around how appointments should be scheduled. And because of that, the clinic often ran late, which meant the pressure flowed through the entire day, from the front desk to the nurses to the providers to the patient sitting in the waiting room. The billing department was actually doing well. She was solo, but she was managing her time well and her tasks well. But the person managing it was, in the end, became very overwhelmed. Because when information coming from the clinic floor is inconsistent, billing ends up carrying the burden on the back end. And then there was something called the encounter form. Back then they called it a charge tag. The purpose of that was simple. When the doctor saw a patient, the services provided would be marked on the charge tag so the billing could later get entered as charges. But the form itself was incomplete. Important information was missing. For instance, if the patient went to x-ray or to the lab, it wasn't marked properly, or all the tests that was done in the lab was not done. So we're running tests, but we weren't billing for it. And then the check-in process was wrong. They would move through the process and leave with a charge tag. But at the end, the visit needed them to return that encounter form to the receptionist before they left. A lot of times, they didn't. They just walked out with a paper. So we end up having to do a recall. Sometimes they don't even bring it back, so we have to recreate the whole encounter process that we had provided for the patient. But we can't enter the charges. Now imagine that happening more than once. That kind of breakdown wasn't just affecting billing. It affects the financial stability of the entire clinic. So before I changed anything, I kept on observing. How did patients move from check-in to check-out? Where did information get lost? Where did the communication break down? When we say we'll schedule you for a referral with another doctor, did we actually do it? Which steps depended on people remembering something instead of a system supporting them? Because in healthcare, a clinic is not just departments working side by side. It's a system where every step touches the next one. The front desk affects the nursing, and the nursing affects the doctor and the providers. The providers affects billing. The billing affects the financial health of the clinic. Everything is connected. And the more I watched, the more I realized something important. The issue wasn't just one department. The issue was that the system connecting everything had not been built clearly yet. And if I had rushed in to fix pieces of the problem immediately, I might have fixed the wrong thing. That's one of the quiet disciplines of leadership. Resisting the urge to react too quickly to fix. Because reacting feels productive, right? You're busy. Observation feels slow because you're doing nothing, you're watching. But observation is clearly where clarity begins. Eventually, there's patterns becomes clearer. And I could see where the pressure points were. I could see where breakdown caused ripple effects throughout the entire clinic. And I understood the system that question from the last episode started guiding my decisions more intentionally. What is the next responsible step? But now that the step came from understanding, it's not guesswork. And that made all the difference, because responsible leadership doesn't come from reacting quickly. It comes from seeing clearly. Now, if you are listening to this and you've recently stepped into leadership, I want to offer you something that might feel uncomfortable at first. You don't have to prove your leadership immediately. You don't have to walk in with dramatic changes. Sometimes the most responsible thing you can do in the beginning is to simply observe. To understand the system before you try to reshape it. And when people see that you're paying attention, and that when you're trying to understand the pressures that they face, and when they see that you're not just rushing to judge or to fix or to make something happen, something important begins to grow. You can guess what that is? Trust. And trust is the soil where real change grows. Without trust, even good ideas will struggle. With trust, people are willing to move forward with you. So before we close today, I want to give you a small leadership reflection you can use anytime you step into a new environment, whether that's a new role, a new department, or a new challenge. Before you start changing things, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. What am I seeing that others might overlook? Let me repeat that. What am I seeing that others might overlook? Number 2, what pressures are shaping the way people are working right now? And third, what might I misunderstand if I move too quickly? Those questions will slow you down, but will give you the best possible results. They will help you see the system as it truly is. And once you see it clearly, then you can make the next responsible step. Leadership is not about reacting faster than anyone else. It is about understanding deeply enough to move wisely. And sometimes the most powerful move you can make is simply to observe and pay attention. Until next time, my friend, stand and deliver on wisdom. Aloha.